it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this gorgeous Breath of Spring crochet cowl. This is light and airy and just a beautiful piece to transition from winter to spring. It gives a little bit of warmth, but it's not too bulky as you want to kind of lighten things up a little bit. We're going to be doing some very easy stitches, some beautiful yarn, and I'm going to walk you through the entire project stitch by stitch from the crochet part, our little mesh stitch that we have here, assembly, and then the finish work at the end. So there's lots of ways you can get this pattern. You can get the full video tutorial here today. There's also the free written pattern over at the blog. The link is below. You can get the ad-free PDF in my Etsy shop and Ravelry shop, or you can join our Patreon group and join our Gold Pattern Club, where you get, for $5 a month, you get access to the month's patterns. So lots of ways to get it. All the links are below. So the finished piece, this is actually a big loop, okay? And you can wear it kind of open and loose, or you can wear it doubled up like this if you want to kind of cinch it up, because spring is can be very chilly, especially early on. So the finished piece has a 60-inch circumference and it's about 8 inches wide. Now I will give you some instructions later in the video if you need to change the sizing, either the width or the circumference of the piece. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. A tape measure is going to be super helpful, especially if you're going to adjust the width or the length of your cowl. We're going to be using a 5mm H crochet hook. And for our yarn, I'm just going to scoot this over. We're going to be using 2 balls of this beautiful yarn. I'm going to talk a little bit about it in a second, but we're going to hold these strands together. So I'm going to kind of create a little bit more of a heathered look by holding the 2 strands together. Now this yarn is 247 yards for 1 ball. And like I said, I'm going to hold it together. So we're going to use 247 yards total, and we're going to act as if it was 1 ball of yarn. Okay. So the yarn here, I wish you could reach through the screen and feel this yarn. It's so soft. It's like a little cloud. This is called Trinity Cashmere. It's the heather color here. This is called Peony. And this is from Yarn Citizen, and this is some yarn from Jimmy Bean's Wool, and I'm so excited they sent me this to share with all of you, and I've never used this yarn before, so I'm really excited. This is 49% Super Baby Alpaca and 39% Mulberry Silk and 12% Cashmere, so it's really luxurious, and they made it with the intent of making more sustainable yarn more accessible to consumers, to crocheters and knitters. So this is really exciting. I will put the link down below if you'd like to learn more about this yarn. And each ball of this is 247 yards, 225 meters, 25 grams. And I'm going to be using 2 colors, this very blush pink color and this heathered kind of soft plum color. Okay, so let's get started. Now, like I mentioned, this is a very light and airy, so we're going to be using a soft, light and airy yarn and also a light and airy stitch as well, okay? And like I mentioned, we're going to hold 2 strands together. I just wanted to kind of play around with the colors a little bit and just make this just light as a cloud, okay? So we are going to take our yarn, both balls of this. I'm trying to be gentle because it's just such a delicate, pretty yarn. And we're going to take one of our strands of the purple. Now, if you go on to the Yarn Citizen site, you can see that's got a little fuzz to it. It's really pretty. You can see all the other colors that it comes in. I wanted to pick some beautiful, soft, springy colors. Okay, so I'm going to get the other strand here. And we're going to pull them apart and we're going to just hold them together. Now, sometimes what you could do is when you have your 2 strands like this, you can hold them together and just tie a little knot until you get going, just to kind of keep them together. But we're going to act as if this was 1 strand of yarn, okay? So our multiple for our project is any odd number. So you can make this really wide and just have it like a nice wide drapey cowl, or You can make it narrow for maybe the warmer days or something like that. So it is customizable with any odd number for your width. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab our hook, leave yourself a little tail, and I'm just going to zoom way, way in so you can see what I'm doing here. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to begin with our starting chain. This is we're going to do our starting chain, row 1 to get ourselves set up, and then row 2 is just the row you repeat for the entire rest of the project. Super, super, super easy. Okay, so wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and then just tighten it on there. And you can see it has this lovely halo around it. So that's the other reason why, because it has a little bit of texture on it, the little bit of like halo, we're going to keep our stitches simple today, okay? So what we want to do is do our starting chain. So what we're going to do is, to make a chain, if you're not familiar, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. Now make sure you're doing both strands and you're just acting as if it's one strand. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35. So like I said, any odd number, this is a nice little width for what we need, okay? So again, holding the 2 strands. Now you can see, if we come in a little closer here, even though there's a kind of a fuzzy, like soft little halo around everything, you can still see the chains, okay? If you're not sure, try holding them against a light background or a dark background, depending on the color of your yarn, and it'll kind of pop them out a little bit too. Okay, so what we want to do is start row 1. Row 1 is just the row that will kind of set us up. So we're going to start by working a double crochet into the 5th chain from the hook. So the loops on our hook here do not count. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in that 5th chain from the hook, we're going to work a double crochet. So to make a double crochet, if you're not familiar, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into that 5th chain from the hook, and bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring through the last 2 loops. Then we're just going to chain 1, skip the next chain, and then in the chain after that, work a double crochet and a chain 1. And that's all we're going to do all the way across. And again, it's really super easy. And if you're using a textured yarn like I am, it's going to really be easier to work with, okay? So skip the next chain. In the chain after that, work a double crochet. We're just going to do this all the way across. We'll do this a little bit together, and then we'll kind of depart. Okay, and then chain 1. Skip the next chain. In the chain after that, work a double crochet. Chain 1. Skip the next chain. In the chain after that, double crochet. And chain 1. And then also while you're working, just be careful that your chain stays nice and flat. Skip the next chain. In the chain after that, work a double crochet. And then a chain 1. Okay, so we're just going to keep going with this sequence. Skip the next chain, work a double crochet in the chain after that, and chain 1, okay? Okay, so keep going with row 1. When we get towards the end, I'm going to show you how to finish up row 1, move on to row 2. Okay, just coming up to the end of the row, when you have 2 chains left, skip that next chain, and that very last chain, work a double crochet, okay? So double crochet in that last chain. Okay, so for row 2, actually row 1 was the hardest row because we were skipping and counting. Row 2 is super easy, and that's the row, like I said, that we're going to be repeating for the rest of the project. So for row 2, what we want to do is we're going to chain 4 this time. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to turn our work. Now we're going to be, instead of working into chains, we're going to be working into spaces, and the spaces are really easy to see. So if you can get through row 1, the rest of this is a piece of cake. Okay, so we're going to skip this first double crochet of the row, and we're going to work a double crochet into that first chain space. Now that's how it's written in the pattern on the blog. If you want to go see the written pattern, you can follow the link below to hop on over to the blog and see the written pattern. But our chain space, it was created, remember we did a chain 1 in between each one of these double crochets? That created a space. So in that chain space, see that first space we come to? We're going to work a double crochet right into that space. Super easy and very easy to see. Okay, and then we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to work a double crochet into the next space. And chain 1. Work a double crochet into the next space. And chain 1. And this really open, I'm just going to get some more yarn here. When you have 2 balls of yarn, they kind of dance around a little bit. But when you work this mesh stitch too, it really mimics the light and open airiness of what we're working on. Okay, so go into the next space, double crochet, chain 1, and don't forget those chain 1s in between, because that's really going to make that mesh stitch work for us. Okay, so we're just going to do this all the way across, and when we get towards the end of row 2, we'll rejoin, and I'll show you how to finish up row 2 and how to keep going with your project. Okay, so just work double crochet, chain 1 into each space across. Okay, just coming up to the end of the row here. And again, we're just working a double crochet, chain 1 into each one of these spaces across. Okay, now when you get to the end of the row, you will have a space, the turning chain space at the end of the row. Instead of working into that space, it would create kind of like a rippled effect down one side. So what we're going to do is work just a double crochet into that topmost chain. Okay, so go into that topmost chain that you see and work a double crochet. Just like that, okay? So you can kind of straighten things out. All right, so here's what we have so far. It looks very pretty, and I think using the 2 colors. Now you could use 2 of the same color if you really love a particular color. This purple is just so beautiful to me. I would definitely do 2 strands of that. But I love how the white just kind of like gives the stitches a little bit of dimension. So anyway, we're just going to go through and repeat row 2 over and over and over again until your cowl is long enough to wrap around your neck however you want it. You can make it really long and wrap twice around your neck, or you can make it just kind of wrap once and kind of sit around your neck on your shoulders. So however you want it to be, I'm going to keep going until I run out of yarn, and then we'll rejoin, take some measurements, do some finish work, and keep on going with our cowl. So keep repeating row 2 and we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, just working that last stitch of the last row. And I'm just going to pull a loop out so we can look at it. We have some beautiful, like a heathered soft look here. Again, we combined the pink and the purple together, and it just looks so nice and light. So what we want to do now is we're going to seam it up, okay? Okay, so I kept going until mine was total length of 60 inches. So that once we seam it will be a 60-inch circumference, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to come back here. We're not going to cut the yarn because we're just going to grab the other edge. So grab the other edge of your piece. And what we're going to do is just line it up. Just going to sandwich it together. Line it up. And then we're going to take our hook and we're going to go into the stitch across on the other side. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see. And grab your yarn. We're going to wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through both layers, and then we're going to turn, okay? And then we're going to work a slip stitch across, okay? So just make sure everything's nice and lined up. Now it's almost like a grid, so it will be easy to keep it lined up. And we're going to work a slip stitch into every space and stitch across, okay? So we had here our first space, so work a slip stitch into that space, insert the hook, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And then we have 2 stitches. See, we have this double crochet here. So go into that stitch and then go into the other stitch, and we're going to slip stitch that together. So bring up a loop, bring it through both of those layers, and bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And we're just going to do this across. So let's do a few more together. Work a slip stitch into the next space. Work a slip stitch into the next stitch. So just go into that next stitch. And you might need to kind of, because of the fuzzy nature of this yarn, you might need to like do it layer by layer, like go into the first layer, then the next layer. So go into the space, slip stitch into the space. And then what I mean by that is you might need to like go into this stitch first and then like look at the next one underneath and go into that one. Okay. And we're just going to do this all the way across. Make sure everything's lined up as you go. And I wanted to mention too, I just had the tiniest bit of yarn, just enough to seam it. Okay. So we're going to work in every space and stitch across with our slip stitch. And then what we'll do is when we return, we're going to finish it up, weave in some ends, and our beautiful cowl will be ready to wear. Okay. So just keep working your slip stitch into each space and stitch across. Okay, we're just slip stitching the very last stitch here at the edge. And then what we're going to do is cut the yarn and fasten off. So wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the loop, and then you can just tighten that down. And then we just have two little ends to weave in, okay? So what we'll do is grab our tapestry needle, go ahead and thread it, thread both of them, both ends, and then we'll just weave that in to our lovely seam. We have a nice slip stitch seam. It looks very nice and neat. And this yarn, because of its halo, it kind of sticks to itself. So weaving in ends, they'll kind of stay put a little better than a slipperier yarn. And we'll just do the same for the other side. So just grab that needle, put both of those ends in there, and just weave it through. Now, if you used more colors or used more balls of yarn, you may have more ends than I did. So just weave those in as well. And then we can snip that off. Okay, so let's look at our beautiful cowl. All right, so if we open it up, you can see because we did our slip stitch in every seam and, our slip stitch seam in every stitch and space, it lines up nicely and blends very well when you turn it right side out. Okay, so like I said before, you can wear it, let me just back up a little. You can wear it nice and open like this, or if you need a little extra warmth, because spring can be very, very chilly, you can wrap it around twice and it feels great. It's just soft and light and just feels wonderful. So that is how you crochet the Breath of Spring crochet cowl. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux video updates. Thanks again.